I'm the best. I got the contrast.
Yeah.
Hey guys, Danny here at Partay. So we got an interesting upload today. We've got the review that we're going to do on the panel that Silent Wait provided of the ADV ALR38 Black Widow. Boy, that's a mouthful. But we're going to do the review on the panel, but we decided that it was actually better to give people full context to talk about the actual channel itself, so that you can put this into context with the rest of it. This is not a sequential video because I'm going to take this panel. I have to do some specification checks on it, and I'll be bringing it back so that we can talk about the specifications of this panel specifically versus the Phantom, which was the small little black panel that you saw in the intro of this video. But we're going to go through projection first, and you're going to need that as a reference for context as to why a lot of things on that channel make zero sense. Then we're going to talk about the channel. Then we're going to go through the specs of the panel and we'll show you a little demonstration on it. And then we're going to do some closing arguments and some facts, some opinion, that kind of stuff. Let's get started. All right, fact number one. Projection means different things to different people. I'll give you an example. Two most common types of projection are going to be dedicated projection. And now I say common types at home. Dedicated projection, where you're in a dark room, generally using a white screen of some value, right? And I say of some value because some white screens, it's commonly thought that most white screens are the cheap screens, but there are white screens that can cost you $8,000 to $10,000. So it's not all just about the color as far as the cost. But you also now, with the emergence of UST ultra short throw projectors, you now have a whole new class of folks who are looking to trade in TVs to be able to use projection in their living room environments so that they can have a bigger image. It's just like having a bigger TV. Granted, it's not going to be the same quality as a television, but at the size and at the quality that you get from modern projectors, you can get a sense that's really close to watching the television. After a while, it just kind of fades away. You don't realize that you're not watching a television anymore. And if you try to go back, I've got a C1 OLED television in the next room. And even though it is a better view as far as quality, because of the size, it's a 60-inch, and because of the size, whenever we try to watch that television, it just feels like you're missing something, even though the quality's much greater, vastly greater than what you get in a projection, even from my P1 here. It's just not the same whenever you downscale to a smaller screen. But that's your kind of classes of projection. Folks say that, projection is two-part projection, and that's very true. Okay, it's true. But here at Partay, we look at that a little differently, and we have a third component. If you look at in this triangle here, you'll see that environment, projector, and screen are the three components that Partay focuses on. Why? Because environment is going to determine many times which projector and which screen you're going to end up landing on. So the environment's going to play a big part in helping you understand where you want to go with your projector and your screen. Okay, the reason that context is needed is because there's different screens for different types of environments. If you watch in generally like a 30 lux or lower environment, lux being the measurement of light on the screen surface, if you watch in that low of lux, then a lot of times you can get away with a lighter screen, a much lighter screen, and it's not going to fade out on you. You'll still hold your black levels and your contrast. Okay, contrast is not just black levels. It's all of it, right? So black levels plays a portion of that. If you're going to be watching in, say, 30 to 60 lux, you may need to go to just a little different screen so that you can hold on to your contrast and the increased brightness, and so on, skipping. The ADV ALR38 Black Widow channel tells you need one screen to do everything. Doesn't matter as long as it's not a knockoff projector by their definition. One screen will do everything you ever need it to. And that, folks, is just simply not true. Let's get into the channel. The ADV ALR38 Black Widow channel is owned by this guy, Kenneth Bird. Okay? Now, Kenneth Bird was previously known as Crystal Edge Technologies. Actually, it's been previously known as about 4 or 5 different things. I think it's been changed. The name for the channel has changed like 5 times over the past 3.5 years or so. But also another thing that happens, okay, is that every time that someone does a fulsome review on the products, poof, they disappear. Every time they disappear, okay? And now there's the new product, all right? The one to rule them all. And it's the last one that will ever have to be made. Yet we've repeated that action over and over and over again. And when I say over and over and over again, guys, I'm talking numerous times. More than I have in fingers and toes, okay? Of these products that have come, get reviewed, poof, they're gone. This guy, here's the greatest thing in the world. It's going to surpass everything out there, okay, including 18 certified screens, which what he means by the 18 certified screens these are different material-based screens that he's gotten from Elite, Daylight, Stewart, just different manufacturers out there. And supposedly now, every product that he comes out with beats them all. It doesn't matter that they've spent millions in research and development to make these things. He beats them all with a simple paint mix that he gets from Lowe's. You can see there's been videos of him with the numerous Lowe's buckets, right? But this black flat paint that he gets from Lowe's, this one screen, okay, that he creates, whatever that one screen at the time is the greatest screen in the world. Everybody needs to own it. 1 gallon of this, okay, costs you $746, and you don't get a sample. You can't order a sample. He doesn't provide samples, which any screen manufacturer, okay, that's trying to sell screens at a big chunk like that, right, and greater, because many of those are going to cost you more, but you can get a sample. This, you're taking his word. He talks about numerous tests, like 30 tests that he puts these things through, but they're all kind of garbage tests. They're not real tests. There's no science that underlies any of these tests. There's no optical test whatsoever. It's going to become very clear and very apparent when you look at other organizations that he's comparing himself to and the information that they put out and the information that he puts out, which is really no information at all. It's just a whole bunch of jargon in there to try to help protect him. Everything out there is about, if you don't like this, I'm going to make it as hard as possible for you to get any kind of refund whatsoever. We have videos of him coming out and threatening to sue customers for reaching out and saying that they're dissatisfied because they're saying, look, if you can't help me, if you can't fix this, then I'm going to have to put out some information that you're a scammer, that you're scamming people out here. And so he comes on, he does an hour-long or 2-hour-long video where he does nothing but berate the customer. That's just a setup to tell you the kind of guy that you're talking about. On top of that, he has no real knowledge. As a matter of fact, the last video that I put out was about him stating that E-Shift projectors are garbage. Now, you may have that opinion. If you don't like E-Shift, if you want native 4K, go for it. But there's no denying that the technology is real and that the technology works and that the technology is primarily what people invest in, because native 4K projectors are going to be somewhere in the ballpark of $5,000 or more just to buy your entry ticket. And E-Shift gives you a pretty good semblance of 4K, so it's a great option for folks if they want a 4K vision, right, or image, without spending that kind of money. But what he's telling people is that you don't want to use E-Shift projectors, because also what they'll do is they will not allow you to pass 4K audio. I'm sorry, it cracks me up. But he actually believed that there's such a thing truly as 4K audio, and if the projector isn't real 4K, native 4K, then you won't be able to use 4K audio. Just a purveyor of bad information, plus telling people that this black screen is all they will ever need. Problem with that is that what you're seeing, okay, when you look at the videos, is not what he's seeing. And we're going to show you that whenever we do the demo. But you're not seeing what he's really seeing. You're seeing what his camera sees. Because he is notoriously known for manipulating his camera settings, specifically his ISO and his EV, his exposure settings, right? And probably a little bit of dabble with his frame rate to get all of that situated just right, so that when he walks around the house, you'll notice a lot of times if folks are filming from area to area within a room, you'll see the light kind of go up and go down and that kind of thing. You'll notice his stays pretty static. And when you see light coming through windows or anything like that, it's just a big white blob. That's all it is. You can't see outside. If he's standing somewhat up close or closer to the window, you'll be able to make at least a resonance of what's outside. But in all cases, the camera's been manipulated. And it's necessary. And you'll see why it's necessary when we do the demo. Because what you see is not even close to what was shown in the video. Now, on top of that, you're talking about somebody who is trying to sell to consumers, okay? Consumer market, not commercial, consumer market. And in a consumer market, why would you need to use 5,000 to 7,000 lumen venue projectors in your home? It's a bad idea. Okay, I'm not saying, I know there's people out there who've done it. Just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should. Once again, in one of my earlier uploads, I'd actually stated it's like buying a dump truck to take off 4 bags of trash a week. Okay, when you could buy a pickup that'll actually do the same thing for you, be a lot less cost over the life of it and maintenance, right? Same thing with consumer projectors. Why would you invest in a venue projector, an old, and keep in mind, he likes to state that these are inexpensive. Well, they are now, but at the time that they came out, these were extremely expensive projectors. It's just they're old. Now they're old. They've been used and abused, right? So you're going to invest in one of these old refurbished projectors that's 10, 12 years old or more, and you're going to use that in your house. It's got a bulb, even if you start with a new bulb, it's got a bulb that's going to have generally about 3,000 hours. And once you hit your half-life in that, you better start coddling that bulb, because they're really bad to get hot if they're not in a good ventilated area, and the bulb would go, right? And it costs more to replace the bulb than you paid for the projector. So once again, I'm not trying to sway anybody. I'm just telling you these are things that folks face consistently. As a matter of fact, Mr. Bird himself has had 2 to 3 bulbs, I think, over the past few months that have blown up on it. So, but he's still pushing people to buy these old clunkers, right? If you're trying to get something that looks great in your home, going to be a centerpiece for your living room, why in the world would you select a 720p projector? I mean, we're on the cusp of 8K, right? I mean, not a lot of content or anything right now. 4K, plenty of content. Why would you downgrade all the way to 720p? Okay, 720p is like when you're watching Dish or something and you watch one of the old sitcoms and it's old and it's on an SD channel. 720p is blurry. Yeah, there you go. That's what you're going to be stuck with. Okay, you're never going to get the maximum resolution. You're never going to get that really nice image quality that you're going to get from 4K. Why would you ever push people towards old, antiquated technology? It makes no sense unless you look at it from his view. Because you remember that equation I showed you with environment, projector, and screen? Okay, what he's saying is forget the environment, forget the projector. Buy the cheapest projector you can as long as it's not on his knockoff list. And just buy the screen, because the screen does all the work. Now think about that for a second. Let that soak in. Doesn't matter what projector you use. Doesn't matter what environment you're in. All you need is his screen. Why would he tell you these things? So let's get into that. All right, folks, so giving you an idea of the brightness that we have here. So I have all the lights on full. Okay. And that's 8,000 lumens from the ceiling. Another 8 between these, because these are, I think, 400 watt bulbs. They're a little lighter. I'd have to check that. They could be 8, but I think they're 4. But just to compensate, we have the window open here. And we're going to run a test. I just tested this. And we're looking at roughly about 350 lux. So we're going to show you that here, so you will understand the environment that we're testing this in. All right. There we go. Have to hit our peak button. Okay, so we took a drop since last time. It's about 274. But that's still going to be plenty enough light to get us where we need to be. Okay. All right. Now, I would mind you, this is 260 to 270 lux. Earlier when the sun was really beaming, it was a little brighter, I think. But the other day, take a look here. This is the amount of lux. He was trying to pass it off as that being 1600 plus lux. But you'll notice that little decimal right there. So it just ended up being like 169.9, I believe. So, and he was standing in front of his window at the time. Here's the thing, guys. When you measure using a lux meter, you want to measure at the screen. Why? Think about it. Anytime that you've seen any kind of photo shoot on television or seen people come up with their little meters and check in front of people's faces, it's because that's where you're going to be filming. Okay? In this case, this is where you're going to be projecting. So you want to know how much light is at the screen. Doesn't matter how much is at the floor. You're not measuring the brightest point in your environment. That's not the purpose. The purpose is to measure how much of that light actually makes it to the screen. Okay, not your projector light, but any room light, ambient light, direct light, whatever it may be. You want to measure at the screen. Somebody measuring the high point of light in the floor, okay, that is nothing more than deception. Because what's at the floor, I could have 500 lux right here, but what would be at the screen may only be 140 lux. That's why, if you're going to do it right, and you know how to use a light meter, and many people out there do, they know what we know, which is you measure at the screen. Otherwise, you're deceiving folks by trying to make them think that it's much brighter at the screen when you're only measuring the floor. Now, if you're going to put the screen on the floor, go for it. But if that's not where the screen's going to be, why would you measure there? Makes no sense, okay? So here's the deal. This is the 38 Black Widow, and I'm going to do it standalone first, okay, so that you can see what it looks like all on its own. We're using the Optima HD 143X. This is a 1080p 3000 lumen peak lumen projector. I've got it in bright mode right now, just because we've got so much light in the room. So I've got it in bright mode right now. And there was a statement made that I needed to give up my P1 for a year. I would just have you know that I have not used the P1 for demonstration purposes on these formulas yet. Okay? I really haven't. That's coming, but everything that we've been showing you so far has been either using the Xiaomi Mijia 1600 lumen ultra short throw or the Optima HD143X, both 1080p projectors, 1600 lumens, 3000 lumens. Let's get started. So I'm just going to flip this up. As you can see, we have an image on most of it. We have an image on the black, but it's not very good so far. But let's change our image and put something else on. All right, so we're going to start with some contrast videos because that's primarily the purpose behind these screens, right? Is to be able to provide you that OLED-like look is what he says. So let's see how much like an OLED it actually looks like. Now I have a jellyfish that's moving across the screen. You can barely make it out there. You see that? And we'll get to where there's another one here in just a moment, no doubt. Here comes one up from the bottom. So let's see, you see it barely making its way up through there. All right. So what I'm going to show you now is this is his previous. Now keep in mind, this black screen is supposed to be ALR. Ambient light rejection is supposed to provide you protection against ambient light. So how are we doing so far? We've got a black screen, but the background really isn't all that black anymore, right? It's graying out because it is Lambertian in nature, meaning that it's just a matte screen and light is going to wash completely across it. Look at that jellyfish. Okay, now let's show you. So this is what you're getting here. Now, if you get up close, and I'm going to try to see if I can get in here where you can see a few sparkles. There's just little sparkles that are within it. It's hard to capture. You can see it in the eye and you can see it better in the dark. So maybe we'll try it that way and see if we can capture it. But that's a lot of mica. There's just a lot of mica in the screen. A little more mica than what's in the Phantom. That's the reason you're getting just a dab of brightness above what the Phantom's presenting, is simply because they're close to the same color, very close to the same color. The only reason that you're getting any additional brightness off of the Black Widow is because it is loaded with mica, which just makes it look sparkly whenever you don't have all this light here to wash everything out. There was a time when I said I did not like black screens, and then I started making one, just trying to put one together. I've come to the conclusion that black screens do have a purpose, not necessarily in general viewing, like watching movies and content like that, but primarily in graphics. You could think of things like a DJ station, graphics in events, those kind of things. Rear projection, it would be nice. But I'm going to show you now. This is, let me get this so that you can see. You can see here that this black is actually darker than the Black Widow. So let's see what happens whenever you take a black that's actually a well-constructed, well-designed black. General purpose or no, just something that's actually had some design aspect put to it. And let's see what we see by comparison. Darker screen, phenomenally brighter. Even the gray, you'll notice this portion over here, okay? I'm not going to say the brand that these are or the name of these screens because I'm not really trying to sell my stuff here. I'm just trying to show you the difference between a very well designed and a not very well designed screen. So you can see just how dim the 38 Black Widow is by comparison to the black screen. The gray screen's not going to hold the same level of black, But if you were to look at it as a standalone, it actually still looks really good because, for one, it's going to be pretty bright. And many of you guys will remember this screen. This is my cookie cutter screen, okay? This is the cookie cutter. All right, folks, so there is the cookie cutter screen. And you can see in all this light, it's still bright. You're still getting a good level of contrast and almost 300 lux of light, 270 to 300 lux of light, because I just checked again. I had to stop because the panel fell off, and it was right at 300 again. So you can see here that you're just not getting the brightness out of these screens, and it's expected because it is just a black Lambertian screen, something you can replicate with about $9 worth of over-the-counter paint. I always said the cookie cutter was going to have its victory lap, and there you go. You see how much light you're losing there? And I'm going to tell you exactly how much light you're losing in a moment. So we're going to move this. We're going to shut down the lights, and then I'm going to show you in the dark, and we're going to take a look and see if we can see all the different speculation that's happening due to the overabundance of mica. So I'm going to turn all these lights off, and we're going to close up this window. All right. So now we're going to have very minimal lux on the screen, probably somewhere in the ballpark of 4 to 10. So not enough to really make a big difference. So now what I'm trying to do is I just saw a speckle. There we go. Do you see when I run across it? Look at the speckles. It is speckled horribly throughout. You can see all the little speckles, just like little Christmas glitter. So just another cheap Christmas tree paint that's being sold for $746 a gallon. All right, folks, on his website, ADV ALR 38 Black Widow claims that this is a 38 gain, okay? There is no such thing as a 38 gain. I invite you to do a quick search on Google or anywhere else and look up screen gains. And what you'll see is that it's a measurement factor, with 1.0 being generally your white screen, which is, I believe it's magnesium carbonate. I have to go back and look it up. I always forget what that is, but it's based on that. And generally you consider that par. It's like close to a white matte sheet of paper. You would consider that kind of par. What that means is that you're getting back basically the amount of light that you're throwing at the screen, you're getting it back in brightness. Okay, once you get to sub-gain, okay, that would be like 0.9, 0.8, 0.7, you're losing brightness. Now, the way that you're losing brightness is because the screen is absorbing more of the light that you're throwing at it. Okay, that's what happens with light. Light does one of three things. It's either going to be transmitted, reflected, or absorbed, or a combination of all three, right? So a white screen is going to give you 1.0 generally, right? You can get white screens that are 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, that kind of thing. You can get them further up, or further up this way. So that would be your increased gain or higher gain screens. That means you're going to get back, 1.1, you're going to get 10% more brightness than on a 1. On a 1.2, you're going to get 20% more brightness than on a 1, right? So you understand the factor. Same thing. If I go to 0.9, I'm losing 10% of my light. Okay, if I go to 0.7, I'm losing 30% of my light. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a 0.25. That means you are losing 75% of the light that you're throwing at it to absorption. Very little, if anything, in the way of reflectivity back to you. Okay, that's why, hence, the need for 7,000 lumen projectors. And to be honest with you folks, to do this justice, you would really need, in my opinion, this is my opinion, for the image that I'd want to see, okay, you would need roughly about 8,000 lumens to get a really good image off of this at 100 inches. Okay? And bear in mind that many of those venue projectors, they're meant to be on screens that are 400 inches plus. So at 100 inch, maybe 120, you're going to need at least 8,000 lumens. You might get by with 6, but it's not going to be optimal because you're still going to have that darkness that happens as you move from side to side. Okay, so 8,000 lumens. Also, component-wise, okay, you can fill this. This is nothing, again, excuse me. Now, I can't smell anything off this. Well, hold on. At this point, I get a small sense of acetate. Once again, Lowe's Black Flat, same paint, same thing as on the Phantom, with mica and paint thinner and acetoner. Okay, so you've got paint thinner that's in this as kind of like a thinning agent because the flat black paint is so thick. Okay, so real quick, just wanted to show you another aspect. You can see here how it doesn't actually go on. There's lines. And that is not the fault of Silent Wake or anyone that would be rolling it. That is a fault of the paint thinner, okay, the acetoner that's put into the paint is not balanced. So it's going to thin out like that, and it's going to be heavier on the end of your roller. That also brings up the issue that on his website, he claims that it's low VOC. Okay, paint thinner is a VOC. Okay, so it is not low VOC because I didn't smell this liquid, but I saw where the others did, and it reeked of acetoner. And I know that the Phantom that I still have some of, getting ready to send out for a review, actually a professional review, but it reeks, absolutely reeks of acetoner or paint thinner. So no way that this is low VOC. All right. Definitely not eco-friendly. All right, folks. So for closing remarks, why is it that this channel operates this way? Changes the names, obsoletes products after reviews, manipulates the camera settings, all visually provable. Why would you do all these things? Use wide angle views on your phone whenever you're recording, because the whole purpose of recording a demo is so that people can get a very real sense for what that image is going to look like. When you use a wide angle lens approach, and it's not mandatory, so he uses it just because he likes using it, okay? And you're looking at these screens as if they're setting down a bowling alley from you, okay? That far away most of the time. Why would you do that? Because it's all to create this sham, this circus of trickery to get people to buy something that's not even really meant to be a product. This stuff is probably just thrown in here as a means to be able to say, hey, I made this, okay? Otherwise, if you just use like a Lowe's Black Flat paint, tried to resell it that way, maybe just throwing water into it, right? Folks would know. Okay, you're definitely just being taken. That product that you just saw demonstrated, $746 a gallon. Some of the most expensive paint in the world, right? Why would you pay that? Why would anybody pay that for what we just saw? Okay, and if the point, and I mentioned in my first video whenever we relaunched, that this is an approach. You can take that approach where you use very high lumen projectors and then use a black substrate to be able to keep like a black background whenever you're watching contrast videos, visual graphics, those kind of things. So it is an approach that you can take, but it's not an optimal approach. It's not even close to optimal for home cinema. Why would you do that? Because at that point, keep in mind, that black backdrop is exactly what it is. It's not a screen. It's just a backdrop. And at this point, now you're having to move to such high lumens. Guess which component out of our 3-part components here is doing all the work? projector. The background, you get one benefit, one feature, and that's that it's black. But that same feature is the reason why everything else suffers. Because this is a Lambertian screen, okay? A Lambertian screen, which he couldn't even in the specs tell you what type of screen you're looking to buy. Think about it. Elite, who he likes to criticize, all these other manufacturers he likes to criticize, they can provide you specs, graphs on roll-offs, all kinds of information, rich information about how your projector and screen are going to work together. This guy gives you 38 gain. That's it. Doesn't tell you what kind of screen it is. Why? Because he doesn't know. He couldn't tell you the difference between a retro and an angular reflective screen. And he's supposed to be a screen professional. But that's what happens whenever you spend your time researching 4K audio. So we're going to leave it with that, guys. That at the end of the day, this is not even a product. This is a scam. It's a sham. All meant to entice people to look at that video, the manipulated video, and think that that's what they're going to get whenever they get it delivered to their home. And it's not. And if I'm wrong, if any of you, I'm going to use your own words against you, Ken. If I'm wrong, if any of you disagree, have your customers come forward and prove all of us wrong. Not just me at Partey, but the whole community. Have those people, because they don't exist. We hear about contracts all the time, these big contracts that you're signing, yet they never come to fruition. And the only ones that have ever actually existed were small little YouTube channels that were actually trying to resell your product. So now you're screwing again. All right. So if there's any of that exists, you should be able to highlight it. If there's a showroom that's showing off your screens, where's the images? Where's the pictures of your screens? And you in there claiming victory, look at my showroom. They don't exist because they never existed.
Now here's another example. Yesterday, while me and my family were in church, this so-called holy man was at home running a full-out 3-hour plus long smear campaign against our channel. And what he was showing people is that image at the top. But the actual video shows the image at the bottom. So once again, why would someone do that? They would only do it because they're threatened and they figure they got to take the competition out. But that's not going to happen. But once again, just a direct example.
These are all just stories. We all know those people who they can tell you that they spent time in Italy, traveling the world, and they've never left their damn hometown. It's so easy for people to lie. It's much harder for people like you to actually prove it. And to that point, I remind you that you talked about all your travels when you were younger, yet we have a video from 2017 showing you flying for the first time. So none of it adds up. And that's the point, guys. At the end of the day, none of the stories nor the product add up. Choose if you're on the fence, if you're one of those people that are on the fence about possibly buying this, or you've been curious, I'm not trying to stop you. Feel free to go ahead and purchase. And when you do, and you see what we see, welcome to the community. You guys take care. We'll talk to you soon.